Just as the guys come up, this time next week, I'm going to be on a surfing trip, and I'm really looking forward to it. One of the best things about going on a surfing trip is that it's a great excuse to go buy a new surfboard. If you surf or play guitar, you'll know that the optimum number of surfboards or guitars is the amount that you have plus one. And so I had permission to go buy a new board, and what really struck me was how far technology has come in the last little while. So the boards that I was having a look at are made of different material, different designs, and it's making it easier to catch waves. They're more manoeuvrable, they're faster. It makes a bit of a chump like me half capable on a wave. It's fantastic. And that's been my experience in a whole range of different areas. Surfing is one, but technology is generally making things faster, easier, better, safer, more comfortable. Why is it not the case in financial planning? Go back 5 years, there's about 120 clients per planner. The number today is 120. And if the number of advisors has fallen dramatically, how are we going to increase access to advice for more Australians? It's not going to be through increasing the number of advisors in the near future because of the lack of the funnel coming through. It has to be via productivity. We have to enable advisors to see more clients. So I'm joined today by a panel of experts in this area, in technology, and we're going to discuss some of those issues around productivity, the client experience, and the like. So the panel are all founders of fintechs. Aaron Satchell is the co-founder and managing director of Finura Group, or a wealth tech consultancy. Many of you would know Aaron's business partner, Peter Warne. James Wartho is the founder of FinTalker. FinTalker is an organisation that uses generative AI to increase the productivity of advice. And Pete McCarthy, the founder of My Prosperity, the leading client portal in the marketplace. So welcome, gentlemen.
Hi. Hi, Greg.
And Aaron, I'm going to start with you. Why is it the case? You guys do a lot of work with consulting to practices. Why do advisors find this so difficult?
Yeah, great question, Greg. Like it's, you'd think that in 2024 we'd be more progressive from a technology standpoint. So I mean, a really good introduction there. Look, I think when I look across, the sort of 45, 50 sort of consulting engagements that we as a business have engaged in over the last 2 years, there's common themes, when we go into those businesses and we start talking about the technology challenges they have. And you'd be surprised because you look across the client cohorts, and this is everything from an institutional superannuation advice business through to, a self-licensed mid-tier business, and even right at an IFA level as well. And those problems are still fundamentally the same problems, yeah. And so, the key things really that we see often is that the practice is sort of sitting there going, today our tech looks like this. These are the pieces of the solutions that we're using right now, and we're sort of thinking about our process in the future. And there's been some good conversation today, I think, around the future-looking businesses, the themes that are coming for practices in the future, and they're progressive. They're thinking about, I need to be ready for those things in the future, and so what does that future tech look like? And the first conversation, the first problem those businesses have is there's lots of technology options out there. Which are those options that I need to be looking at? And are they going to be fit for purpose for me, for the business that I'll be or the practice that I'll be in the future? And they're thinking about other things like the proposition in the future, the types of clients they'll be engaging, the advice they'll be providing. So I think the plethora of just advice options out there fundamentally makes that, that first step really challenging for practices. Underpinning that is integration. I know that some of my peers on the panel here will talk about integration a little bit later as well, but you're not only just looking across all of those solutions, but then you're thinking about, well, what ones play well together? Because integration is really important. This seamless integration of solutions and passing of data and how do I know that they're going to actually integrate really well and they're going to support my business now, but also into the future as well. And so a lot of that initial conversation is around, existing tech that I'm using, what tech's out there, and thinking about the actual integration in the future. And that's really challenging for these businesses because they're sort of casting the mind forward sort of 5 years. Come down that next level, and then it's data. It's not sexy. We're having, obviously just had a conversation then around data and have the power of data. Data is the new oil. But the quality of data within the practice and the solutions they're currently using right now also makes that really challenging because there's the data they're collecting, then they're using day to day through the advice process. But then, even at a practice analytics perspective, we've got some really good CRM solutions that are in place right now. They might not be doing the things that I want them to do today, but I can lift that capability. But fundamentally, how do I improve the quality of my data? And this is not just client data. This is not, just the data collection that you might do with a client. This is practice analytics. It's like, how do I actually measure how efficient my operations are, my client service team, and these sorts of things. And so data is often a very pertinent problem that they're looking for. Advice documents. No one likes advice documents. It's be no surprise to anyone in the room here that that's the next pain point on many people's minds. And I think QAR coming is a really good pivotal point for us to start thinking about what that might look like in the future. And It's good to see that a lot of the progressive licensees are starting to think about, what that looks like on the other side of QAR. But it's good because right now that it's at least prompted the discussion to go, you know what, the current regime, the current regulatory environment actually gives us some flexibility to be able to do something different when it comes to advice documents. And so thinking a little bit differently around, how, not just the Word document anymore, but what that process looks like. And fundamentally, it's coming upstream. It's I've still got a wizard or a Word document, or I've got a template that I use right now to produce my advice. You'd be surprised how many businesses we go into that are still copying and pasting in the Word document. And so having a digital or singing or dancing advice document it's a long way away for some of these businesses, because the fundamental tooling they're using today is really challenging. And then at process level, I think the one good thing that I think that a lot of these practices are approaching and thinking about is that often this change process was very much back office, middle office, front office focused. It was very process driven. I think that's shifted now. A lot of businesses are starting to think about, well, actually it's client first. They're starting to think about, instead of re-engineering my process and my workflow, my threads and processes, let's think about what the customer actually wants, what the client actually experience needs to look like, and work backwards. And that radically changes the way in which you start to think about how your technology all fits together. And so, inevitably this leads to a discussion around, client portal and how we engage in the future, because those practices might have gone on a bit of a journey with thinking about client portal as a technology. And let's face it, that's been driven by cyber security concerns and the collaboration of documents and these sorts of things. But now those businesses are thinking about, well, what does that look like in the future? How can that drive my actual full experience? Because, I think we've heard it earlier today, liquid expectations. People are using Spotify and apps on their phone. Banking apps are amazingly good these days, depending on which bank you're with. And that's the same expectation that the customer has. And so I think, that customer experience, that client experience really shines through in those discussions as well.
Great. We're going to pick up some of those topics of discussion today. We're going to talk about integration. We're going to talk about client first and portals and the like. Before we do that, we've got one poll question. There's only one, so get involved. The question is, where do you feel you could save the most time by leveraging technology in the advice process? I'll repeat that. Where do you feel you could save the most time by leveraging technology in the advice process? It'd be great to get an idea of that, if we can open that up. We could not have organised that better.
Segue.
That is fantastic. There's a big file notes there, advice production, document production, and we are going to touch on those. I'd love to keep that up for just a bit longer. So SOA generation, we'll definitely cover those things. Before we get into those things though, one of the key topics that Aaron mentioned was the client experience. And I want to touch on the client experience first. So Peter, clients today have different expectations about how they interact with service providers. How does a client portal drive value for a client?
So this is what we do every day. We just focus totally on the way we think a client would want to engage with an advisor. And to do that, we look at actually outside the industry, and we look at the client experience in other things they do in financial services and broader. And we sort of looked at how, for example, mortgage brokers do things these days, and they typically don't now. They, send out an email and send attachments to and from. Clients typically log in to do stuff, provide data, provide documents, etc. So a client portal of sorts. And if we look at my daughter applied for a rental property the other day, and she wasn't given an email from the property manager like the old days saying, can I get your copy of your tax return or your employment contract and all that sort of stuff. She logged in and she did that. That's how she did it. And then if we look at the vast majority of Australians now, when they deal with the government, the Australian government, they log into MyGov. If they want to deal with the ATO, Medicare, Centrelink, they're going to log in and do it. The days of getting emails with bank statements from your bank and all that sort of stuff, they're gone. Now you log into your internet banking. So the world's moving to a consolidated login. So we've looked at that across multiple industries, so not only a lot of those financial, and we've realised that basically clients wanted to be easy to collaborate with you and work with you to get the best outcome. And technology is going to drive that. We've looked at the process over the journey, and Greg made a good point. 5 years ago, things haven't really changed that much, funnily enough, right? There's still, we caught up with one firm, and they felt their biggest innovation in the last 10 years was they got a better printer, right? Because their SOA got out faster, right? So our view is it's all going to be about the client experience, working back, And all the great tech companies, or all the great financial services companies now are really focused on the client experience and working backwards. Financial planning typically has been working on your back office and moving forward. And you've got to do that, right? You've got to be profitable, you've got to be efficient. But we think the powerhouse firms in the future will think of the client experience first and work back, and also be working back and moving forward to provide the best user experience. So, one of the things Aaron made a great comment, and we think about this all the time. Your experience that clients have from a technology point of view will be judged by the app they used just prior to that. Right? So that when they log into something, the one before that they might have logged into was Spotify or Facebook or Instagram or those sort of apps on their phone, right? And if you look at your home screen, there's going to be some apps that you love, and you love them because they're a great client experience and they provide value. The most valuable real estate in the world used to be Pitt Street or George Street or Collins Street or St George's Street in Perth, whatever. The most valuable real estate in the world now is the home screen of someone's phone, right? That's where you want to be. You want to be on their mobile phone. And our results, interestingly, are showing that now. 72% of our client logins, and April was our record login month. And believe it or not, 3 things were done: filling in a fact find, signing a document, and uploading a document. We had a record month, and that was, and 72% of client logins were on mobile. 3 years ago, or pre-COVID actually, it was the inverse, was 30% on mobile. So what we're seeing now is clients expect a digital experience. They love an in-person experience, by the way. We know that when we've done our client research. But that, coupled with great technology, I think has become the expectation. So the days of email and attachments and paper-based fact finds, I mean, it's 2024 and I still can't believe advisors. Our competition actually is not in the other portal, it's paper, right? Yeah. So we just think a more modern experience is actually what's going to be expected by your clients. And that, with great advice and great in-person experience, is what's going to drive the future of a great client experience.
Awesome. So on that, the question that we asked, there are 2 key priorities when it comes to the application of technology. One is it's a statement of advice production, and we're going to attack that in a moment. But the other one is file notes. And so let's attack that now. James, generative AI has transformed a whole lot of industries, but financial planning is really a specific industry, has specific requirements and legislation around it and the like. In an area that's so highly specialised, how can generative AI be used?
Thanks, Greg. Well, look, first I want to talk just a little bit about what AI is. So the big difference between AI and non-AI is, for non-AI, you basically ask technology, you ask code a question. Is this transaction bigger than this other transaction? Yes, it is. It's a 100% yes, no. AI is a world of probabilities. It says, I think this is something bigger. It's a world of confidence, and that's the biggest difference between AI and traditional programming. Now, there's been a huge explosion in the last couple of years in interest, the last year and a half really, in large language models. So this is born out of basically compute power becoming cheaper. It's been now possible to run AI models and train AI models against really large bodies of text. So think about every book that's ever been written, think about every internet page that's available, and they've trained these large language models that can now give a reasonable answer in a lot of cases to questions. Doesn't mean they're right. If they've read a load of documents to say that the Earth is flat, they will tell you that the Earth is flat. Doesn't mean it's right. So they're not the be-all and end-all and answer to everything, but they can sure help. So a big question I get asked is, are these large language models going to replace a financial advisor in the foreseeable future? My view on that, and I work with this technology on a daily basis, is no. Financial advisors, you guys know, it's a lot about trust, building trust with a client, having a relationship with a client. You try and replace that with a chatbot, good luck, I think. But can it help you run your business? Can it boost productivity in your business? Can it do all the admin things that you hate doing as advisors? Can it take that burden away from you? And I think the answer to that is a categoric yes. So what we're doing is we're ingesting conversations live between financial advisors and clients. So you can record it on a phone, you can bring a Teams meeting in, you can do a meeting on your laptop in person, And we're able to use AI to drive out a lot of insights that you would have to spend a lot of your brain time and admin time doing afterwards. So we're able to produce things like a 6 or 7 page file note at the end of an hour and a half meeting that is done and written for you. It'll name the client, it'll tell you what the client said and did not say. Now, is it perfect? It's 90, it's very in the 90s perfect. Do we expect you to check it? Yes, you should always check what it's done. Tesla have spent billions of dollars building an automated car. They still say keep your hands on the steering wheel, right? And the same is true in very regulated businesses. If you're not regulated, then you don't need to. But we're in a regulated business, so keep your hands on the wheel, proofread your file note. But as an example, advisors that are using our platform and working with us have gone, if they're writing big file notes, they've gone from spending an hour and a half after a meeting to spending 10 minutes on Friday afternoon scan reading them and updating a couple of things. That's a huge savings. Half a day a week for a lot of these advisors. And that enables them to see more clients. So Greg mentioned before that the average in Australia is 130 clients per advisor. The UK, I think, is more like 230, isn't it? Greg, is that right?
It is, yes.
Yeah.
It is. So the question is, how do we get from 130 to 230? Well, AI can certainly help you do that, and we're working on that on a daily basis.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Have you got other examples of how more generally AI is being used in practices?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of general BizTech AI out there and coming on the market. So Microsoft have got Copilot. So this is all BizTech that's been designed for general business. So it might have uses in financial advice, but it might have uses in a classroom for teachers or any other field. So Microsoft, and other big A players are trying to produce software that has some relevance across many industries, but not domain specific to things like financial advice, where you're regulated and you have a specific language that you want to talk. The other big call out I would make with a lot of kind of business BizTech AI is a lot of it is offshore. So a lot of it is funded and running out of the US or other places. So a big call out I would make is be very careful where you're sending your data. Financial advice data is, in my view, at least as critical, and probably more critical from a cyber perspective, or as critical as health data. So I speak to advisors, not every week, but every few weeks, who are making that decision to send data overseas, and I implore them not to do that, and I implore everyone here, please do not do that. The German government, I don't know if you guys saw this, the German government was hacked in February by the Russian Secret Service. They were sending their data offshore and talking about their Ukraine plans, and they were hacked through using a US meeting service. I won't mention the name. So even very large military type organisations and governments are falling foul of sending their data offshore. There was another one last week. There was a clubs, I don't know whether you saw this, there was a clubs hack. My driver's licence, anyone who's been in a club in New South Wales in the last year, your driver's licence was leaked, and that was done through an offshore. So there's a lot of AI running in the US and other locations, in the US specifically, but we make sure, and you have to make sure as your business, that everything stays onshore. Don't send anything offshore because it exposes you. So that's what I would say.
It's a great point. And so cybersecurity, any conversation about technology is going to involve cybersecurity. Now, we'll come to that to just a moment, because I'm going to ask you about that, Pete, because I know that's something you have thought a lot about. Before I do, funnily enough, the biggest area of potential efficiency that has been identified is the statement of advice. So I can't believe we're getting excited talking about statements of advice, but let's do that. The production and delivery of advice remains a real point of frustration, and that is demonstrated by the fact that the statement of advice has been identified as a key area for efficiency. So, Aaron, this is for you. How can technology be applied in this area?
Yeah, great question. It's good to see. I mean, it's mentioned many times on the slide there, so it's quite topical, obviously. Look, I think you've got to ask yourself, like, why are we still talking about SOA and improving the advice process? Like, this is fundamental to all of our businesses, yeah. And like, it's something that is constantly brought up repeatedly. And I think, back to those practice engagements that I talked about earlier, when we change the focus from the output document, a Word document, this structured template, that we're all very familiar with, and the production of that, and we begin to focus on the process of assembling that and all the things that go around the outside of actually delivering advice or providing advice to a client, and begin to think about the experience, as I mentioned earlier as well, it changes the focus of the way that perhaps advice should be delivered. And I think there's been some really great inroads with this around the video SOA and the other methods of delivering advice. But I think, again, back to the liquid expectations that Pete talked about around the last app that a client had used, we really do need to shift our thinking towards digital advice. The way that we would deliver a piece of advice. I'm not talking about a robot producing the advice. I'm talking about digitally delivered advice in the sense that the client's actually receiving advice digitally in the same way they'd interact with any of those other service providers. And to do that, we have to fundamentally retool the way in which advice is actually generated, the actual way that we produce advice. And so stepping away from and thinking differently to the way that we would configure a wizard right now, or someone who's using a Word template primarily to actually produce that advice, and thinking about requiring more from our software providers, CRM providers and advice providers on the way that advice is delivered. And so, fundamentally, the things that advice practices are thinking about, obviously the digital advice at the end, but thinking about how can I embed media like video and these sorts of things around that advice? How can I deliver that to a client digitally through a portal? And I know Pete will want to have a chat about that in a moment, but for those clients that are not using a portal, how can I digitally deliver that in a consumable way that they can actually access that without having to remember a new password and a new login, all these sorts of things, and do that quite efficiently, and streamline that process. And so, when we talk to those practices, they're really thinking about, they're taking, inspiration from other industries that are using different technology to deliver, proposals. There's so much proposal software out there that other industries are using, and there's a lot of inspiration that can be taken from those solutions to do that. And so, we actually see a lot of businesses going, right, well, this is the SOA. It will change on the other side of QAR. We accept that, but the current regime right now lets us do these things. Yeah. And take the view that it's an advice presentation. The advice presentation needs to look like this. It has an agenda. It looks very visually appealing. And start thinking about using Gen AI and some of the stuff that James has spoken about, or even Copilot, to sort of leverage a better way of taking what would be my output advice document, producing an actual PowerPoint presentation, but then I'm still editing that up. I'm still building out the fundamental presentation that I'd send to the client. And then thinking about the process that I've got as a business in terms of how I deliver that. There's a lot of advisors who are recording small Loom videos or videos that they're sending to the client pre-meeting, and that is the advice presentation. And then the actual advice document sits underneath that to support the fundamental advice. Where do I think this will go in the future? I think we're going to begin to see purpose-built web applications that sit alongside our current advice tooling. So you've got still your research and modelling tools and your financial modelling tools, of which there are many out there that you can use, that operate in the same way that a proposal tool you would use right now, but gives you this flexibility around branding and styling and the engaging elements that we should be seeing in advice in the future. And so, a good example is I think that there might be things that look and feel a little bit more like Canva in the future that will actually help us actually deliver more engaging advice. And so, I think we definitely see that on the horizon in the future. Yeah.
Excellent. Do you know anyone who's working on a purpose-built web application?
We do, yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. So let's return to that point about cybersecurity. James, you made a great point. Be careful where you're sending your data. Personally, I know that my medical data's on the dark web, courtesy of Medibank. I know some of my financial information is there, courtesy of Latitude. Cybersecurity is such a massive issue and it has such a massive impact on a practice if you get it wrong. So, Pete, from your perspective, what are the main points of vulnerability and what can be done about it?
Security is a tough one to talk about when it's standing between you and the bar, everyone here, but I'll give it a go. So look, security to us is critical. I think when I started my Prosperity, it was all about creating a great client experience, right? And I think for a lot of people that was a nice to have, some wanted it, but they didn't have to have it. With what's happened the last couple of years, I think a portal for delivery of information to a client's gone from a nice to have to a must have, right? And we've really got to think about how we deliver or share information with the client. When we've analysed, again, different industries, the wonderful thing about financial advisors is they collect more information pretty much than anyone else. If you look at a financial fact find, that is your life on, depending on the dealer group, somewhere between 10 and 90 pages, right? It's amazing the amount of information we collect. And the fact that we're still doing that via paper or via email or whatever in an insecure or unsecure way is sort of a bit unusual in this day and age when we look at all other financial institutions we look at. So cyber for us has just become such a big driver of usage. And I think, and I like the word James used around the importance of advisor, and one of those things is around trust. So I see a great advisor as actually being a custodian of my data, right? You're the one I'm going to share all this information with, both what I want, my goals, my dreams, my aspirations, but also all this amazing factual data, right? And I think as an industry, we have an obligation to say we've done the right thing in handling that. Now, that might be you've got data stored in CRMs and so on, whether it be Xplan or Microsoft, etc., and they're all secure. But the way we transmit that to clients, where it's living in their inbox, in their email or whatever, which is, or in the, even worse, clients' data sitting in the inbox of an email of a staff member, which can be easily, it's just a treasure trove for hackers. So the way we see it is we have an obligation now, right? We really should think about how we share data with clients, how we send it to them and how we get data back. So client portal to me is, either you're gonna have to password protect every email you send, every attachment you send, right? All that stuff is gonna have to happen as a minimum, or you give clients one place to log in where they've got their financial world in their pocket and all the stuff there is there, and it's got all that security across it with bank level encryption, multi-factor authentication, all those things that are critical. So I think cyber and that issue is actually going to end up being client driven. They're going to start demanding, hey, what are you doing with my information? And you're going to have to be accountable for that. So it's a tough topic to talk about at the end of a long day, but I think cyber is going to be, just continually being something raised by clients and the industry as a whole.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, we've been asked a couple of times, is it possible to email file notes out of our system? And the answer is absolutely and categorically no. Email is not a secure method of communication, and so you need to be handling these types of important client-critical documentation on an enterprise-grade platform that you log into, where you've got two-factor authentication, and you log in and you get the data on there. Email is not a secure platform. Yeah, spot on. Yeah.
Right, I've got a challenge for all of you. So I don't mind who takes this one, but one of the things that Aaron spoke about at the beginning was integration. You've got all these great tools, and you guys have got the examples of producing great tools, but they don't necessarily integrate. So is there a future where data passes seamlessly through these solutions, and what does it look like?
Oh, Gary, why not? We're about 39 months into a 3-month integration with Xplan, for example, right? It's been hard, for example, but with that, the good news is as you build out this integration with one of the hard ones, a lot of those get easier. So, if I look back a couple of years ago, it was really, really difficult. Now, like we integrate with things like Xplan, we've integrated with SharePoint, we're doing a lot of that work. So I'm actually quite optimistic on where integrations are heading. I think there's been a lot of frustration in the past, but I believe that there's a lot of time and money invested by firms like ours, other players in the industry to open it up. Cybersecurity is going to drive a lot of that as well, right? The change of, automating documents going from a client portal, for example, back to SharePoint, so you're not downloading it on your hard drive and putting it then into a cloud-based service. So I'm very optimistic about connectivity. I think it's going to, and I know the amount of money we're spending on it, so I think integrations is going to get better and better, but it's been hard. The last couple of years has been very difficult, but I think there's a lot of money being spent on it. People are more open. And so I'm getting more and more optimistic that the holy grail is there, where we're not rekeying data and we're not downloading stuff. So it's getting better and better.
Yeah, I would.
I'm the optimist.
I would agree, Pete. And I think if we look at the client numbers that advisors are seeing, how do we get from 130 to 230 or 240? How do we allow you guys to be spending your time seeing clients, financially modelling, thinking about all the things you want to think about, rather than double keying, triple keying? And the answer to that is good technology that's really integrated. You really need to be able to go about your business, run your financial advice business, work with your clients, and have that stuff taken care of for you. And that requires this integration. So it's a massive priority for us as well. Xplan interfaces is a massive priority. We're even, Pete and I were talking the other week about a client walking out of a meeting, not only having their file notes, but the actions for the advisor already come out for us. So this is what the advisor needs to do, and the actions for the client already come out for us. So why can't those actions pop up? The advisor looks and says, yep, I'm happy with all of those. Push a button and that goes out through the client portal to the client. Why can't it be as seamless as that? And the answer is that it can, and it's going to be in the next few years and next few months and years as we work on this stuff, Pete, right? But I think this integrated world is coming, and it'll be a better world as a result.
Fantastic. Aaron?
Yeah.
Yes, I'll just add to that. I definitely agree with Pete. I think as tech providers, industry's shifted a little bit. Like there is this change, like consumer data writers coming online. We've got open banking that's come online. Like there is just a strong, push, at an industry level to enhance the way in which integrations work. Like, so there are proven ways of actually doing integrations. I think as an industry over many, many years, we're transitioning legacy technology and the platform technology and all the stuff that sits underneath that. It's really hard to integrate, those pieces of tech. And I think with those things coming online, I think that, the onus is on us as tech providers now to actually improve that integration. I think, not only are custodians of data for advisors and for clients, I think we're custodians of these systems, and the onus is on us to actually integrate better seamlessly and reduce that friction. And again, look to other industries, Xero's done it really well.
Yep.
Yep.
Exceptionally well, and that's consumer driven.
It'll be really driven too by, what I call a coalition of the willing. So a group of, and stolen by someone we know, but that term. But it's really about a smaller number of, there's a heap of financial software you can choose from, and that's going to be very difficult for everyone to integrate with everyone. But I do think there'll be a really key sort of spine of technology where everyone works well together for mutual benefit. So they're not trying to, it's a best of breed approach. So I think that's going to be a real driving force for integrations moving forward.
Fantastic. James, one for you. Can these solutions improve compliance?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, every single advice business that we talk to, small one-person advice business right up to the big licensees, their number one challenge is productivity and satisfying compliance requirements and matching that against the productivity challenges that they've got. So yes, by automating and using AI to do a lot of this stuff, we can use that technology to produce much better compliance outcomes and artifacts for you guys with much less input. And so that means your level of compliance is going to go up, but the level of effort required is going to go down. And that's a game changer for you guys, I think. The other thing I would say is that you can use AI, and we're using AI now to help advisors to meet their compliance requirements. And I'll give you an example of this. We're able to listen to the conversation and parts of, if an advisor has to issue a disclaimer, have they done that? And in meeting, we're able to say to them, hold on, you might have forgotten these 2 or 3 things. Are you happy with that? Or do you want to do something about it? If they do issue a disclaimer in the meeting, maybe it's a general advice disclaimer or some other disclaimer, did they do it? Did they do it as their compliance or their licensee's compliance would like them to do it? And so we're actually able to give you a kind of quality of that in meeting if you want it, but after meeting if you want it later. And then you can look at it and go, oh, okay, here's what my compliance department would have liked me to have said to be perfect. So actually, you were able to bring up the level of compliance with that with very little effort and do that in a fairly seamless way to your meetings. So yeah, I think there's a way that this technology can really help you tick those compliance boxes that all your compliance oversight people want you to tick and help you get it right.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right, potentially one of the most important questions. Now, part of my observation is that advisors will, it doesn't have to be advisors, anyone really gets motivated and, to install a piece of technology in their business. They go back and all of a sudden you've got the pressures of seeing clients and running the business and being profitable and the like. So implementation becomes a real struggle. So my advice is, what advice would you, my question is, thank you. My question is, what advice would you give to advisors to get some of these solutions in place?
I'll take it to start with, yeah. I think, look, primarily it's been mentioned already, but due diligence, when you're looking at solutions, do your due diligence, understand where the data resides. There's just hygiene that you need to do as a business. And I think, engaging your team to come on that journey, almost a mini project team inside your business, very important. And I think, once you move through the due diligence period, piece of work there, think about, right, what is it I'm actually going to take now to implement this piece of technology in my business? Engage your full team, allocate appropriate resources within the business to actually make it happen. Because time and again, solutions get picked, they get, this is really good, this looks amazing, it's going to do these things for us, and you go back and you talk to that business in 6 and 8 months' time, nothing's happened, it's fallen over. You've got to really assign ownership within the business and really drive hard to implement those solutions. That'd be our advice.
What, just following on from that, so you're talking about a DD process. What are some of the elements of a DD process?
Data security. It's a ticket of the game now.
Yep.
You absolutely got to do data security. No one ever gets a bad demo, right? So I think you get hands-on, use the tools, use the solution, actually put some real scenarios through the solution, clients, strategies, pieces of advice. Understand what will do for you inside your business under your proposition. And so I think, road test it. Absolutely. These are things you need to think about.
Yeah, I would add to that, Aaron. Never be scared to ask for a free trial. Ask for a free trial. I want to try this. You say it's good, the demo looks good. I want a free trial. I want a couple of weeks to try this out. So ask for that, and you'll probably get it. You'd be surprised. People say, "Oh, okay, all right, yeah, we'll give you a go."
No free trial, Pete.
Yeah. Sorry, Pete.
So from our point of view, actually, I fess up, we made a mistake when we started My Prosperity and how we thought it would roll out. So we had this beautiful idea, we thought, and it was based on my background. I sort of ran a private client, private family office business. I thought someone would want this software, this portal that has everything in it, their whole financial world in one place. And just because I believed that was important doesn't mean the broader industry did. And what we realised, and we've done a lot of work on this, and a lot of people, I'll give a case study in a moment, is just because we think technology is great, whether we drop it on the desk of our staff or on their desktops, or we drop it in the lap of a client, doesn't mean that they'll get how and why they should use it. So I'm really big on, even with what we do now, My Prosperity, is slim things down. Take one or two, couple of key things you want clients to do and roll those out first. We've got awesome other features you can roll out later, but start with the key features. So that could be doc signing, reviewing a fact find, uploading a document. Just get the client to download the app, activate the account. So do the must-have, and we can turn other features on over time. Initially, we had it, whether you like it, you've got the, the big Mac, right? And what we've realised is we've got to stage that, not only for firms, but also clients. And I'll give a great example. We had a firm based in Brisbane, and they had a very considered rollout approach. They trained their staff, not on the whole application, but just on a couple of key features. They rolled it out, and in, I think it was about the first 4 months, they activated 500 end user accounts, and their clients either signed a document because it was their authority to proceed or an FDS or whatever, reviewed their fact find and got delivered an ROA and their SOA. And that's all they did. Now they're moving to the next stage of turning on additional features. And for them, and they did it through the review process. They didn't just send out a thing saying, here's our new app. They did it when the client came in, it's annual review time. And the other key thing is the benefit in our situation with Client Portal, the benefit is to you, the client. So we've got a place that you can safely go and do all this stuff. So they sold the benefit, both to the staff and the client. And if you're overseas in Europe and you need to sign something urgent, you can do all that via our app, and it's all secure, and that's what we know. And so I think the lesson for me is make sure you know that a lot of software has a lot of features. Just pick a couple of key ones you want to roll out, train your staff and educate your clients, and that will work better. And that was from experience, so that's my advice.
Is this, Aaron, is that something that's similar to what you guys, when you're working with clients from a Finura perspective, is that similar? Do you take a similar approach?
Yeah, look, absolutely. Yeah. We've got this framework we call jobs to be done. We're really looking across the business and thinking about the advice process, the experience, the proposition, and picking off a couple of those and going, right, these are the most significant pain points in the business. what tech supports that, what processes support that, and how do we need to engage the team? How do we need to facilitate change management? And it's exactly that. And these are the areas here that are most impactful right now. And then we can move through those, prioritise those, and think about those other areas. And it's about efficiency. It's about financial return for the practice as well. There might be areas that they never get to because actually they're quite low down the list. But bite-sized pieces, little pieces along the way. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there is this change coming. There's Gen AI, there's integration coming. There's the technology that is going to be available to you as an industry is improving, and if you adopt it, that is going to bring this increase in productivity and increase your ability to build your client list and see more clients. The converse is also true, though. If you don't try this stuff out, if you don't have a go with this stuff and get involved in this stuff, then in a couple of years' time, you're still going to be seeing your 130 clients, but others in your industry are going to be seeing 230 clients, maybe more. We've got one who's seeing 300, believe it or not. And so this change is coming. I would recommend you get on board, get involved, try it out, have a crack at it. And see some benefits from it.
Great.
Yeah.
One final question for you all. What's your favourite piece of technology that's not your own?
Well, for us, I'll take it first. For us, it's Canva. I think we're all about presentation, right? But Canva, I've got some people in my team who are not particularly good with brand and application of brand and the way that these things should be delivered.
Talking about Peter again? Or not?
I am talking about different Peter, but like Canva, you can parachute into your team and they've got some really amazing tools and look like rock stars. Like they've got a presentation and there's just some amazing stuff you can do in there. And I think it's not you taking control of that anymore. There's some great design assets there, and Canva really dresses it up, makes it very easy as a business. So yeah, Canva for me.
I like Xero. So if you think about general biz tech, Excel, I also like Excel. But 20 years ago, people were building GLs out of Excel, right? And Xero came along and have just revolutionised it. And it's a really good, it's fit for so many different businesses. It's integrated. They solve the integration problem very well. So all the bank feeds are integrated. It makes it much easier to run a business. So I really like Xero.
I was just before we go, I did see a stat this week that still the fourth most popular financial planning piece of software in Australia is? Excel.
Yep.
That leads on to my one, in a way. I like Power BI. I think I like a comment that was made earlier about the importance of data and data being the new oil. I think it was a comment made 10 years ago or something. But I think that's true. And I think visualisation of data, Power BI does a really cool job at that. So I like it. I think it's right. Yeah.
It's awesome. Thanks very much. Thank you for your time. Please thank the panel. You've had the easy questions from me. No. Now you get the hard ones.
It's late. We're rolling.
Let's go.
First of all, thanks, gentlemen, for bringing it home. What I'd like to ask open question is, we've spoken a lot about data security, which is always sort of, if it bleeds, it leads kind of rhetoric. In most small businesses, which is where everyone in this room and everyone down the barrel is, you're always got that constant paradox of your strategy, your people, your execution, your cash. Let's start with cash. What percentage of the firm's costs should be their tech allocation? And do you feel that we're over or unders in this country? Don't care answers.
Well under.
Well under. So what?
You're asking fintech providers.
Triple it.
Okay. So what percentage? I did actually see a Finura stat on this, so maybe we'll throw to that. So what percentage are they currently spending?
Yeah. Look, I'm with Pete as well. It's under, yeah, and it's got to be higher. I think when we look to the US and we look to the UK, it's much higher than the current spend. Look, I think it's probably 10 or 15%. Like it depends on the side of the practice. It can be significant where we are. I think
I know your stats better than you do.
So do I. It's 4.2.
Yeah, it's probably higher, right? Like it's much higher. So, yeah.
So,
and this is not just advice tech, like this is general business tech as well. Like this is across the entire practice. Let's be really clear, because otherwise it's very easy to just go, it's just advice tech. It's just these licenses over here, or it's this complete tech across the entire business.
So you're saying that we're currently spending circa 5% and we need to spend circa 10. Now that's got to come from somewhere, which is a whole other conversation for people who are probably the ones drinking at home and the ones about to drink here need to digest. But surely we can lean more on the $3 billion plus business on the table here and who've integrated in with a great client portal. And you mentioned you're 39 months into your 36-month process. A lot of the questions are very much when. So what would you do if you're in small business and you had a choice of doubling your spend? The question I get asked a lot is, should we be rationalising the tech we're using? If so, what would be your go-to? Obviously, outside of your own technology, right?
I'll just raise a comment on that. Is my personal view, and it shouldn't ever be seen as a cost. It should be seen as an investment. So my comment would be, if you knew you were going to spend 30% on technology, but you got a return on investment that was significantly higher, you wouldn't go back to 5%. Right. So my personal view is, this should be part of a well-run business should invest in technology, not buy technology. And part of that should be what the return you're going to... Are you going to see more clients? Are you going to see better clients? Are you going to have stickier clients? All those things should be taken into account, whether it be portal, advice, file notes, whatever. All of it should be seen as an investment to either drive efficiency or drive top-line growth. That's my opinion, rather than the discussion around cost.
True. 120 clients over 10,000 advisors is a national tragedy. I think everyone can agree at that. And with my background, I get to see a lot of profits of a lot of firms. And if you just wanted a really easy metric to take you past that 30% EBITDA, it would be the 150. So, no matter what you've got, no matter what you do, we all price quite similarly. We're all getting pretty good at that. That 150 is your first hurdle. And after that, it very much can be a return for your shareholders. Is that what you've seen? Maybe yourself.
Are you talking about the return on investment?
Yeah, so we're at 120 now.
Yeah.
200's the stretch target.
Yeah.
But the best practices are at that 150. No, they're not at that 200 yet. If they are, they're lying to you. They're at that 150.
Yep.
What are you seeing that they're doing differently?
Well, I think as we've talked about, you need to adopt good technology that's integrated in order to get this. What I'm seeing that's some firms that are doing that versus some firms that are not. This industry has a habit of building fragmented, we're going to build it ourselves. And I've seen that a lot over the last couple of years. And I spoke to one a few weeks ago who had decided, and you were talking about cost and where's that cost going to come from? Well, this business decided to try and build a file noting tool themselves. And so they invested, I think, about 15 or 20 days of effort as a proof of concept to get that done. So, depending on what your all-in day rate for a person is, I mean, maybe that's $10,000, $20,000, then they were generating about 120 file notes a month. So they needed someone to drive that process because it was still very manual and type it in everywhere. And so that was going to be another 3 or 4 days a month. And then they've got to maintain it. And then they've got to secure it. And then suddenly they go, oh my God, we've got a big mess. What are we going to do now? If you think about that type of thing being rolled out across the whole industry, and you think, is that where we want to be as an industry in 3 or 4 years? I think the answer is a categoric no. What you want are industry solutions that are best of breed, that are integrated, that talk together, that are cost effective, that have got a good business case behind it. These business cases, if you look at the big end of town, the big banks, the big financial institutions, every project is done, except for reg ones, are done on a business case. What are the productivity savings? What are the savings for the business? It doesn't matter whether you're a one-person firm. You should be doing that same analysis. As Pete says, what's it going to save me and what's that going to return me?
Thanks very much. And look, although financial advice industry wants to try and be an early adopter, when it comes to data security breaches, we're pleased to say that both the telecommunication and the health industry have front-run that. So we're not as bad as what we normally get portrayed, and let's hope we're not there. With that, it's a tough gig being last. If you guys could give it up for these guys, and I'm going to bring Emily up to bring it home. Thank you very much, gentlemen.